Good evening, Thunder Wizards. It's a Friday evening here in Southern California, almost 8 o'clock in the PM. So, wow, what an intense, well, for me, an intense week. And getting ready for my surf trip. I'm very excited about it. I wanted to talk about something that we talk about a lot, which is how we manifest the future. But it's also more about how we recreate and manifest ourselves. We also create ourselves. And if you're in let's talk karma, for instance. Negative karma. Negative karma just means challenging. Karma, there's no such thing as positive or negative karma. There's no such thing as that. There's just the results of what you do. So let me address that for a second too, which is that a lot of us think that what we feel, and this is what is taught in like The Secret and things like that, what we feel attracts our future. And I just want to drop a nuclear bomb into that and blow that up. That comes from old Christian thinking and from the old Abrahamic tradition. In the Ten Commandments, it is a sin to have lust for your neighbor's wife. That's a sin. You can't do that. Jesus said that if you have hate in your heart, you've already committed murder. As deep and profound as that sounds, what a mindfuck. Because we have very little control over our emotional responses. I'm not saying no control, but very oftentimes we have very little control to how we emotionally respond to stimuli. And I have proven to myself that it is not the feelings that I have or the thoughts that I have that creates positive or negative futures to live through. It is the actions that I take. Actions include assumptions, beliefs, and then decisions that you make, which result in actions. Now, I want to really tighten the screws on this today, because I'm going to be talking about how in every single nanosecond, you are continuously recreating and redefining yourself. And you end up in a state where it feels like you are, this is just the way that I am and I can't change and, things are so bad, there's no hope for me or whatever it is. But what we don't realize is that state, even if it's a state of challenging negative karma, was built 1 nanosecond at a time. And each one of those nanoseconds, as they come through, we either support our assumptions and beliefs and decisions and attitudes, or we drop them and recreate them. And so let's talk about the power of weird. Weird, W-Y-R-D. W-Y-R-D. Power of weird. I've shared this with you, but I'll share it with you again. These are things you can never get enough of. And I'm doing, with you what you do to yourself, which is I'm reaffirming, I'm reinvesting into a belief and an understanding, and so that's what we do with ourselves. But weird is you have the present moment. The present moment is Ginnungagap. If you're familiar with Ginnungagap, it is the yawning chasm. It is the void. So every present moment is the void. It is pure energy that has not been manifest. So it's an illusion that we sit, that I'm sitting in this fixed chair and this table here and this, and that I'm X amount of years old, and I do this, I am this, I feel this. That is an illusion that there's some constancy to that. It's an illusion. But it is not an illusion that each nanosecond, when I have an assumption, when I choose to believe something, when I choose to invest in an attitude, which is different than a feeling or a thought, and especially if I take an action, I do something, I say something, I walk out the door, whatever action I take, those things create fixed situations. Then the situation is fixed and it becomes the past. Carlos Castaneda, although he himself was a fraud, if you don't know that, the man himself was an absolute fraud. He was an extremely destructive person, and he stole everything that he wrote. He made it up. He stole it from other people and made it up. But it doesn't change the fact that he was a brilliant shaman, because he channeled brilliant teachings. Brilliant. Some of the most brilliant teachings about shamanism, most profound and life-changing things I ever came across were in his books. Except for the last book or the last two books, then he gets off on this weird crap. But he says that, and I can't remember his exact words, but the way he describes it is that our experience of reality is that we are reorganizing the past. It's not about the present. It's the illusion of being in the present, but our experience of I'm sitting here, this is that, this is warm, the light's on my face. That is, we're just remembering. The process of remembering and then recreating from our memory. In fact, I was just thinking, now that I realize that I was watching, I didn't watch all of it, but I've watched it before, the movie Memento. That's a pretty good theme about that. Trying to recreate the past, trying to remember the past. And by that, the conclusions that you make based on what you think the past was, you make conclusions about who you are and what you're going to be in the future and all that. But in this moment right here, every nanosecond that passed, the present moment is not fixed. It's just a bunch of energy moving around. It's not fixed. Our intentions, our beliefs, our assumptions take it, solidify it, and immediately throw it into the past. And then we relive it. And that is how we experience the present. We're reliving the past that just happened. Surfing is an interesting thing. As you know, I'm a surfer. One of the reasons I love surfing is that when, waves, when you're on a wave, when I'm on a wave, speaking for myself, when I'm on a wave, the part of my brain that is engaged is not the part that remembers. So it's just fully in the moment because I'm in this relationship with this energy, that's coming, that is moving this water around, and I have this relationship with this wave of energy and this water, and I'm so tuned into it that while I'm experiencing it and enjoying it, and so many things are firing off to do this and to do that, that what's interesting, as soon as the wave is over, I start paddling back out, and I realize I can't remember what happened. I know that was a good wave, and I remember some general things about it, but man, what did I do? This is why it's so fun to see yourself on video, because then you get to see, oh, wow, look, I did that maneuver, and I did that maneuver, and wow, I don't remember that. That's cool. But that's probably why I like it so much, because it's such a shamanic experience for me that I just go into this state of emptiness and I'm just nothing but pure instinct and pure experience in the moment. And once the moment is gone, it's gone. Just like the wave. Once the wave hits the shore, it's gone. I can't look around and see how big was that wave again? What did it look like? It's gone. The present moment is like that. We live in Verdandi, the immediate, ever-present, ever-unfolding now, which becomes the past. The past then creates your future. The future is called debt, which is the same word as karma. Same word. It just means you now, once you've made that decision, once you have made that assumption, once you've adopted that belief, once you've invested in that attitude and then taken an action, those things create past. And the past says, now that you have done this, the outcome is this. Similar to the experiment that was done, you've probably heard the phrase, light is both a particle and a wave. And that came from an experiment that was done, I believe, in the 70s. If I'm right, I could be wrong. Where the determination of that experiment was that light responds to the intention of the observer. If the observer sets up the experiment to prove that light is a wave, light will act like a wave. If they set up the experiment to prove that light is, a wave or I just lost that. Whatever the other one was, a particle. If you set up the experiment to prove that light is a particle, then the results will be that light acts like a particle. And this same experiment was done more recently. I believe it was in Australia. I could be wrong about that. But it was done more recently with a lot more up-to-date technology and equipment. And they came to the same conclusion that light responds to the intent of the observer as either a particle or a wave, but they found something else, which of course I don't know the exact, I just remember reading it and it blew me away, which was that light goes, and when it hits the whatever it's supposed to do that measures what it is, light then goes back into time and changes things so that it appears as though the whole time it was a particle or the whole time it was a wave. So in other words, as it's moving through the air, it hasn't decided what it is yet, and it goes, oh, you want me to be a wave? Let me go back in time and change things so that it will become a wave. And that is our experience of reality. We do that. We experience the present moment. We think it's the present moment, but it's us going back and recreating the time that we just had and recreating it to fit within our parameters. Now, this happens on a psychological level, with communication. Now, I am guilty of this. If I am not in my highest awareness, and especially when it comes to things like, texting or, this is why texting is a horrible way to communicate. Because, you can't see the person's face, you can't hear their voice, so many things that go into interpreting what people mean. You can't see any of that. So you interpret it with whatever filter you put on it. Now, when I'm not in my highest awareness, even when somebody's in front of me, if I'm frightened or feeling defensive, I have the tendency of hearing the worst. Somebody will say something to me, and there have been times when people have been giving me compliments or even apologizing, and I don't hear that. My brain looks for the worst in it and then justifies when I'm in that bad space in my head. And so that's like a really extreme version of the same thing, but when it comes to our reality and even, down to our body, if we want to talk about health, our physical health, I do believe that the possibility exists if somebody is neutral enough, which is, I think, impossible for a human being, because if they get to that level of neutrality, they're no longer human anymore. But the possibility exists that if somebody is neutral enough, they can recreate themselves in any way they want. You know, another example of this is with people with multiple personalities. If somebody has multiple personalities and one of the personalities has an allergy to something, it will like die if they eat something. And if another one doesn't have that allergy, they can eat that same thing and they won't die. Same body, but that personality is recreating itself continuously on the pattern that it holds to. And this has been, as I understand it, this has been proven, you know, that different personalities show different things. Their eyes can change color, you know, their strength will change, all kinds of stuff that is pretty much impossible to be just psychosomatic. But they can actually change the DNA in the body to represent what that personality, you know, is continuously recreating. Now, I know a lot of people are going to listen to that and they're going to want to ask me, well, how can I do this and how can I do that? And I say, come on. Because each one of those personalities is an entity with its own karma. It has to replay. So, but the point is still the same. We're recreating ourselves in every single nanosecond. So the practical thing that I want to talk to you about is this. And I'm going to share with you some personal stuff. You know, I'm kind of on the fence about whether I should or should not do it, but I'm going to go ahead and do it because, you know, this is what I do. I share from my personal life when it's appropriate. I would never do it if I thought it would be harmful to somebody. So just let's be clear about that. I don't want to do it just for the sake of doing it. So some of you know my background. I grew up in a very dysfunctional home. Both of my parents are dead now, but I had a brilliant physicist of a father. Brilliant. This guy was, they're still trying to figure out his equations. And he's got satellites in the Smithsonian. Of course, it doesn't have his name next to it because he was working for different companies, but he has, you know, he was huge in the space race in the 60s and getting us to the moon and all that kind of stuff. He was brilliant. But he was a very dysfunctional guy and he was an alcoholic. And I had an older brother. I have an older brother. Sorry, Freudian slip there. I have an older brother, and he's 5 years older than I am. So he was a lot bigger than me. And he had decided when I was born that I was the enemy, and he made my life miserable. Blamed me for everything. As far as I know, he still blames me for his life. But he and I both grew up in the same home with the same parents. And so we were wired, we were programmed the same way. Now, I am here, as you know, and as you know, I have this business that I'm doing right now, and the foundation of that business, even though I teach shamanism and meditation and Qigong and runes and all that kind of stuff, the foundation of it is that you are in control of your destiny and that you decide to what you create, that you have a soul desire that if you follow the programming that your soul has given to you and you overcome all of the challenges that present themselves as you go after that, that you can create and experience the life beyond your dreams. Wealth, happiness, you know, health, everything you can imagine, you can have all of that. And so that's what I talk about every day. And I have put a huge amount of work into my own development throughout my life. And I've worked extremely hard to be where I'm at, not only emotionally, physically, mentally, spiritually. So that's me. My brother is homeless, lives in his truck outside of Walmart in a city in Oregon, I won't tell you where. And he has $30,000 in the bank. And the only thing that's keeping him from going to the bank and getting his $30,000 is that he would have to go into an existing, in that town, there's an existing Christian mission that take homeless people in and help them to get IDs and get back into the world, and they're very successful at it. But it's a program, and you got to follow certain rules. You got to do what people tell you, and his pride is so much that he refuses to do that, and that's the only way for him to get his ID back. And because he tried to go to the bank, and they say, without an ID, we can't give you anything. So, but he won't do what he has to do, and it's not that difficult. And he's very sick. He's 5 years older than I am. He's approaching 60, and he's very sick, and he might very well die. And so we can sit and look at it and go, this is so easy. Why doesn't he just go do that? Okay, so he doesn't want to be told what to do. Well, just do it for however many months. What is it going to take, 6 months? Even if it took a year, fine, go do it. And then just get the 30 grand and start over again. Go get your life back. Now, because I grew up in that home with that mother and that father, I completely understand what his emotions are doing and what his thinking is. I've also known him most of his life. I mean, there's big chunks where I haven't had him in my life, but I watched him. If you were to talk to him, he would tell you stories and you would probably believe, wow, this guy has really had it tough. But I know different. I know exactly where he came from, and I watched him throughout his life not only make choices, but I listened to the things that he said. And I saw firsthand what happens to somebody when they indulge in victim mentality. I watched it. It's one of the reasons I'm so good at picking it out when I hear it, because I watched it. Now, I've had my share of victim mentality through my life as well, so I know from my own personal experience what it feels like. Now, if you were to put the two of us side by side, I don't know if you would see a family resemblance, but you would definitely see an absolute difference in us, and you would go, how is he only a few years older than me? Because he looks a lot older, looks very old, and really ragged and really torn down. And he was, you see my girth here. He was bigger than me. Left to himself, his genetics, he's got better genetics than I do. He is, he's about my height, a little shorter, but he is, left to himself when he's healthy. He was really strong, really athletic and really strong guy. Like, he was like the guy that nobody messed with in high school. Even the jocks, they stayed away from him because he was built like a rock. And now he can barely function, and he's walking on a cane. So I think about him, and I think about the continuous nanosecond, every nanosecond he reinvests in the resentments that he has. He reinvests in the story that he tells himself about who did this to him and who did that to him and why this, and God didn't, whatever it is, all the people that did it to him and all of the things that did it to him, and women did, all that. He's got all these stories. And this is, again, something that Castaneda talks about. He talks about the stories that we tell ourselves. And when we can get to that place, which is what Buddhism is seeking, that state of emptiness, where we stop telling ourselves the story. We recreate ourselves every time we recreate the story. What you don't know and what I don't know as human beings is that we are doing this every single nanosecond. Every single nanosecond, we reinvest in whatever story it is we tell us about ourselves. And this is why, for my brother, it is impossible in his mind. I'm not saying it's impossible, but clearly he feels it's impossible for him to do that very simple thing of walking into that mission and saying, hi, can you guys help me? And just following probably very simple rules. And allowing himself to be taken care of, and all of the, the pride and the insecurity that comes with all admitting to yourself all of that. Because he's got this story that he keeps telling himself. I remember one time years ago, and he was complaining about a physical issue that he had, which he blamed on me. He said, he has it down to the moment where he says, whatever I did that stressed him out so bad that now he's sick for the rest of his life because of that one moment 20 years ago. And he was complaining about that, and he said, the only time I feel better is when mine is surfing, his was racing motocross. He says, the only time I feel better is when I'm riding my motorcycle. And I said, well, of course, it's because you're having fun. And I said, you should do that more often. You should go have fun. And he got furious with me because I was messing with his little story. Because it's true, if he went after his soul desire, he might have gotten healthier and better. So going to the place of Ginnungagap, if you ever have those thoughts and feelings about, I wish I could go back in time. If only I hadn't done this. If I could just go back in time and fix that, it would all be okay. You can do it right now. Right now, as you sit here listening to me, you can stop. I'll tell you another story. I have a group that I go to. There's a group of people that we go to, and we tell each other the truth. We have a teacher, but blah, 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 but we tell each other the truth. We reflect back to each other what we hear in people's unconscious. And I was coming in, and I was not in my highest awareness, and I was upset about something. And I got into an argument with somebody in the group, and that happens. And and I don't remember what I said. I said something, I don't even remember what it was, but it definitely had to do with an attitude that I have or had, and a reaction that I have to when people say this or do that. And then I went on about why that happens, and I'm justifying it. And somebody said, Mike, why don't you just drop that? And for whatever reason, I heard that, and I went, they're right. So I dropped it. I just dropped it. Now, that thing had been a lifetime reaction. It was a lifetime response to interpersonal stimuli. And so that's very difficult to do. But it is available to us at any moment. Talk about my brother. From an external perspective, and based on what I've seen in my experience, it would not be out of the realm of probability to say, hypothetically, that there's probably no hope for him. He's not going to change. There's no hope for that. The truth of the matter is, it's just a lot harder. It would be a lot harder for him to change than it would be to stay the same in his experience, because the story that he's created in his ever unfolding moments, which get lodged into the past, have created this huge weight that pushes on him. And he doesn't, this is true for all of us. And it's true if it's positive or negative. So here's the other point about this, is that if we're talking about karma as both being challenging and beneficial, you are constantly creating both kinds of karma all the time. In fact, there is far more positive karma, even for my brother. There's far more positive karma than negative karma. Because if negative karma was really as bad as we think it is, it would smash us out of existence. It would snuff out our life force. But people live for decades and decades and decades with all this bad luck. That means that the challenging karma is weighing on it, but the positive is overcoming it because they're still alive. So when we talk about somebody that has a good life, if I think about myself and all the things that I enjoy about my life, that I like about my life, I can definitely see sometimes the laborious, horrifically, challenging periods of my life where, and I've shared this before, sometimes it's 10 seconds at a time. For 10 seconds, I'm not going to jump out that window. I remember saying this when I was a kid, when I was 18, 17 years old. And I remember, I won't get into it, but I remember wanting to jump out the window. And I said to myself, there's a clock, and I said, I'll go 10 seconds and I won't jump out the window. And I'd watch 10 seconds go by. And it would hit 10 seconds and I would go, okay, I made it through that 10 seconds. I'm going to go another 10 seconds. And I'd watch 10 seconds go by. And it was just, I gave myself just 10 seconds. If after 10 seconds I want to jump out the window, I'll do it. But for now and for 10 seconds, I won't jump out that window. And whether I realized it or not, I was staying in that Ginnungagap where I wasn't committing to a specific story about myself. And I was allowing a new story. Now, if you've got a story that you've been telling yourself for 20, 30 years, and you start here all of a sudden to try and create a new story, it's not like you all of a sudden just throw that story out the window. It doesn't work like that. That story is still pushing on you. It still has its debt that's pushing on you. But you can't do anything about that. But what you can do something about is in this moment, 1 nanosecond at a time, you start to create a new story about yourself. So this is what happens when I am sharing with you and I say to you, drop the victim mentality. I'm telling you to stop the story. And, people want to hold on to their story. We could get into why that is, but that's a whole other subject. But people want to hold on to their story, and they fight me about it. And sometimes people get really, really violently angry with me, and they leave all kinds of nasty comments. I'm sharing with them how to make their life better. I'm telling them that they can master the matrix, and they leave me all these horrible comments about whatever I am. It's because I'm threatening their story. And just like my brother, he's attached to his story. He's so attached to it that for him to let go of that story would feel like death. He'd rather physically die than change his story. This is true about physical health as well. And, this is why I say when people ask me, whatever it is, they ask me about, how do I cure myself of this illness? How do I move out of my parents' house? How do I make a living? How do I find the love of my life? The answer to all of those questions does come back to the same thing, which is drop the old story. Drop the victim mentality and listen to what your soul says makes you happy. In that moment when you are listening to what your soul says that makes you happy, if you can get, sometimes it's just a sliver, I had it for a second and then it's gone. For that 1 second, you are in Ginnungagap. You can rewrite your whole story, completely physically change yourself. You've heard the stories of people who are 70, 80, 90, 100 years old and their body doesn't know that. I'd shared with you a few other stories about how, different personality has a different story. The whole body will change, completely change on a cellular level. They're changing themselves. So that's one thing to think about. How come the guy who is one personality has blue eyes, and then when he's a different personality, he has brown eyes again, the same eyes he was born with? How does that happen? It's because each personality has its own story, and they bring that story with them. What if you could change that? I'm sitting here telling you that you can change it. The only way I know how to do it is through a lot of work. I don't know any other way to do it. But even the little bit of work that you can do at every single nanosecond can be enough to completely change things around. I do believe that if my brother chose to, if he were able to stop and drop it and recreate his story, I believe he could heal himself and he could end up and live a full, long life and be 80, 90, 100 years old and be a happy man. If he had it's not even if he had the ability, if he chose. If he chose to change his story. So this is why I teach all of this stuff up here, qigong.thunderwizard.com. Qigong is life force energy work. And it is it's not one of the, in terms of pure connection to energy, it's the most powerful way I know to connect to it. And when you are in that state and you feel the energy moving, you have that much more ability to intend a different reality. And I didn't know this at the time. I started practicing and learning this because I wanted to be, a master ninja martial artist, and I was able to achieve something along those lines. But along the way, I found out, oh, that's not really what this is about. That I'm doing all this energy and so that, I barely touch somebody and it explodes inside their chest and, I move faster than the eye can see and blah, blah, blah. And that's because of the life force energy that I'm getting. But that's peanuts. That's peanuts compared to take all that energy and then intend your reality. Then you create this whole new reality, a whole different ballgame. Both of my teachers who taught me this, I haven't talked to either of them in years, so I don't know. Maybe they've changed their story. But what I remember of them is that they were both very unhappy men. Most powerful men I've ever seen. Walk into a room with 20 guys with AK-47s and they'll be the only ones walking out alive. They're that powerful. But in terms of being happy, very unhappy men. So all that power didn't didn't give them the power to change their story because they didn't use it for that. The astrology.thunderwizard.com. Same thing. It's giving you the ability to look at your strengths and your weaknesses in this particular avatar that you've picked up. And you use those planets as tools to rewrite your perfect story. It all comes down to the same thing. It's just different angles coming at it from different places. Okay? All right, so that's the idea. That's what I wanted to start sharing with you. I will take a short break and then I'll come back. And if there are any questions, I will be happy to answer. Let me see if I have to make my little speech here first. Do I see? Okay, so maybe I do. So if you're new to the channel, what I'd like for you to do, please, is just ask me questions. This is a question and answer. If you have a question, I'd like for you to write the word question in all caps. The rest of it is not in all caps, just the word question. The reason I do that is because a lot of times when people come on here and they just talk, I can't find the questions, and sometimes I scroll past questions because I can't see them. So ask your question, and I will do my best to answer it. All right, I will be back in a couple of minutes. Hang on. All right, welcome back. All right, so let's see what we've got in terms of questions. So, first question I see here is from Black Earth Productions. Hail Black Earth Productions. If you're not familiar with his channel, you can go. His channel is Black Earth Productions. His website is blackearthproductionswithaz.com. Correct me if I'm wrong. Very powerful teacher in his own right. So he asks me, right now with transits, etc., are individuals being forced to face Ginnungagap in context to a major line being drawn in the sand with the core essence? And then he says in parentheses, it is for me. Well, this is where one of my failings as an astrologer, I'm not big on following transits, so I wouldn't know. I can tell you, for me personally, I sure as hell feel that way. I mean, especially today. Oh my God, I don't know what the hell is going on today. I have some ideas, but holy crap, I feel like that. I feel like there's this neutron bomb inside of me right here, and I'm coming apart at the seams. Some of that I know why. There's some things going on in my life, and I know why that's happening. But then the question is, what has influenced me to take those actions to feel like that? Wouldn't surprise me in the slightest, my friend, but unfortunately, I'm not spending any time looking at that. And to be honest, I'm not very good. I don't know transits very well. Astrology, as you know, Black Earth Productions is also an astrologer. By the way, very prolific astrologer in his own right. As you know, this is a huge science, and nobody ever masters all of it. Maybe I've got my little niche that I really focus on, but there's a whole hell of a lot of stuff. I'm a student, just like everybody else. All right, let's see here. Sunshine on Sophia. Question. Are you saying we can transmute negative energy attached to a past experience by simply changing our perspective as a positive, learn, grow? Well, that is one way to look at it. That is definitely one way to look at it. I'm hesitating because I'm trying to put into words what I'm feeling. How I'm experiencing this. I want to take it to a level deeper than that. People ask me, can I go back in time and change things? And it's not that the question is wrong, it's that they still don't really want to change the story of who they are. They just want to change one aspect because they think if they change that one detail, that everything will be okay for them as they are. And I'm saying that it's more powerful to change our story of who we are right now than to try and travel back in time and change something. Having said that is a practice that I do. It's a very powerful shamanic practice. There are times, in fact, now that I'm thinking about it, I need to do it. Yeah, because there's something that's really bugging me. And I want to fix that. So, thanks for asking me that question, because now I have something to do when I get off of this. I'm going to go, as soon as I'm done, I'm going to go do this technique. You go and think about periods of time that you regret. Think about periods of time where you feel you were damaged. Well, maybe you actually were damaged. Where somebody really did something horrific to you. Go back in times and think of something that you wish you could take away. Oh, I wish I hadn't done that. Oh, man. I got a few of those. I wish I hadn't done that or said that or sent that email or whatever it was. I got a few of those. What you can do is you can do it, driving down the street with your eyes wide open, but you can also do some deep breathing. You can maybe do some Qigong first. It helps. So do some Qigong, get some of the life force energy, connect yourself to the power of the universe and feel that support. That's the one great thing about Qigong, is that when you do it, You feel the support of the universe that supports you and loves you and wants the best for you. It sounds like I'm talking about God, but it's on a whole different level. It's not somebody out there. It's an actual force that penetrates you that you can feel and interact with. So do some of that first, and then close your eyes and get yourself in a calm state and take yourself back to that moment. And see yourself there. So if you were 10 years old, see your 10-year-old self in whatever the scenario. So let's say it's a scenario where, I did this as a 10-year-old. I got into a lot of fights. And I was a bully. I wasn't a bully. First I was bullied, and then I did my share of bullying as well. So I would go back into time, and I would talk to myself in that moment. I would talk to myself in that moment as I was about to, let's say, bully a kid or something. And I would stop, and then I would explain to myself how this is going to affect you. And you're really going to regret this. And he's just like you. He's just a scared little kid. And he's, whatever it is I need to tell myself. Why don't you do something different? Stop and do something different. And then I would imagine the timeline as it would have unfolded had I done that different thing. And all of the other people that would have been affected by that in a positive way. And see that spread out and feel that and take that in. And then go on and travel down that alternate timeline and experience all the positive things that would have happened up until the present day. And where would you be today had you made that different choice? And then integrate that into who you are now. That's one way to change the story. Now, on paper, it doesn't change that happened, but it absolutely changes the story that you tell about yourself. And that story that you tell about yourself determines our actions. Here's the thing. We think we have control of what we do. We think that I'm choosing to do this. We don't have that kind of choice. That's an illusion. The choices that we make are built upon the years and years and years of each nanosecond of the story that we tell ourselves. My brother thinks he's making the choice to live in his truck. He's not. He doesn't have any choice over what's going on. This is what addiction is, by the way. Addiction to drugs and alcohol, well, anything. Addiction to anything. You think you're choosing to pick up that needle or pick up that pipe or pick up that whatever it is. But you're not choosing to do it. Your story is forcing your hand. So this is just a way, you asked me that question. So I'm going to do that. I'm thinking of one moment that if I could take it back, I would take it back. And it's too late. I can't now. It's out there. It's like a fart. Once you let that fart out, everybody can smell it. You can't suck that back up your rear end. It's out. There's no putting that back in. I'm thinking about a moment that I did that not too long ago, and I'm gonna go do this for myself, and I'm just so that I'll be comfortable. And what happens is that you have power next time around when those same kind of influences come up that are going to push you to operate from that story. Your story will have changed. And you will have the power to make a different decision. And I know this works because there are times in my life where I made big changes. The time when I decided, it wasn't so much that I decided, but it was definitely the pivotal moment. I was married. I was married to somebody that I was not compatible with. And I was not living up to her standards, and I was trying to fit into her box. That didn't come out right. I was trying to fit into her little life that she was trying to create for me. And I remember that it got so bad. I was outside. It was, what the hell I was doing in Boise, Idaho, I have no idea. I'm a California boy. I do not, going up to the snow for a day or for a weekend is fun. But after that, bring me back down to the sunshine. I mean, today it's almost Halloween, and at sunset, I was walking on the beach in the sun in my bathing suit, my shirt off, and enjoying, California. What the hell I was doing in Boise, Idaho, I don't know. But I'm out there and I'm cleaning up dog shit. And I love those dogs, but there was 5 or 6 yapping dogs yapping in my face. And I'm sitting there cleaning up dog shit out in the yard. And I had just had my ass chewed out by my now ex-wife, telling me how I wasn't good enough and all these different things. And I stopped and I said, what am I doing? And I started fantasizing. I didn't have any money. I didn't have anything to do anything with, but I started fantasizing about, wow, if I could change my life, and this always happens. This is why I teach people to go into the fantasy world, because it has always worked for me. And in the beginning, I would do it by accident, and I would fantasize about, wow, you know what, if I could do anything and I could change my life, you know what I would do? I would do this. I would leave here and I would go do that. And then I would go, hey, I can do that right now. There's nothing stopping me. And then I would do it. So I was having one of those moments, and I was, it was cold, and it was like my hands were cold because it was like, 36 degrees outside, and I was scooping up dog shit, and dogs were barking, and I was thinking about my life and how did this become my life, and I'm so trapped. And I felt something tell me, you don't have to do this anymore. This is not going to get any better. You guys aren't aligned. She's not going to meet your needs. You're not going to meet hers. If you leave, your life is going to get a lot better. I felt that. And, then I started really changing my story and taking some actions. And then our marriage fell apart. I went and did that. In fact, I went upstairs that same day going, let's see, I'm making $500 a month on book sales. And I typed in cabin $500 in this cabin in the middle of the woods in northern Idaho. That was like, and I started crying like, oh my God, I wish I could live there. Guess where I ended up living? Not, a year later, I was in that cabin. It was just this fluke. I didn't even type in anything. I just typed in cabin $500 a month, and that one cabin came up. So just to give you an idea. But to get back to the technique, since that period in my life has gotten so much better, there have been times when I realize that I go back, I close my eyes and I go back and I become that. And I talk to myself and I tell myself exactly, hey man, you don't have to do this. Mike, if you want, you can have this and this. If you leave, here's where you're going to be in X amount of years. And I believe that is real. I believe that I really was influenced by my future self. So we can do that. We can do that right now. Maybe we can't jump into the future. I take that back. We can jump into the future. But we can definitely jump into the past at those pivotal moments where we did make decisions, and we can reinforce those decisions. And we can, play out another timeline for what if I had made a different choice? Because hindsight is 20/20. And now we know what we should have done. This is what I should have done. We can go back and do it and follow that timeline. And energetically, when we come back, we will have brought that energy from that alternate timeline into this one, and it will have changed our story. And the point of that is it's going to change our future. It'll change us in the direction to the future that is aligned with what we really want. So, yep, I'm going to do that as soon as I get off the video tonight. I'm going to go do that, right? Okay. All right. So, if you're new, please, I'm only interested in the questions. I know everybody's got their opinion and they want to chime in. It's really not what I want to do here. I just want to answer questions. It gets in the way of my ability to answer questions. Having said that, I don't see any other questions, so I'm going to take another break and come back. If you do have any questions, I'll answer them, and if not, we'll make it a short one. It's only been an hour. We'll make it a short hour one, and I'll get on my shamanic journey for the evening. So I will be back in a couple minutes. All right, let's see. Anything happened? One question here. Donna Marie B333. Hi, Donna Marie. How are you? Did I miss you answering my previous question? I don't know if I saw your question. Let me go back up to the top. Sunshine, so okay. Donna Marie B333. Question. During my reading, you mentioned that head hair is about karma. What should we do with our head hair, or does it even matter? Well, ultimately, don't live your life over your hair. But yes, hair is accumulated karma. The reason why there are so many monastic orders where they shave their head is for that reason, is because the hair has a lot of karma, which is your story, your identity, and they're shaving it off and they're getting rid of their story. And so that's why, when you get a haircut, that feeling you get when you get a haircut and you feel more vibrant? And really, there's nothing, it's not like you lost 10 pounds off your head. Even if you get a trim, you somehow feel energetically more vibrant. It's because you've dropped some old karma. So, and again, whenever you see that, when people are just at that, they really want to change, they'll shave their head. They get crazy and they shave their head. I shave my head for ego reasons because I got a big bald spot right here on the top, and it looks ridiculous. If you can see it in my older videos, you can see the ridiculous. You can see it in Celestial Qigong. If you want to laugh, go get the Celestial Qigong, and you can see a big bald spot on the top of my head. I remember I did it because my ex-wife wanted me to have hair that combed back, and I don't know why she wanted that. I like to have my hair super short, but we were at a restaurant and there were two mirrors, and I could see my head from the back, and it was like there's this hair that's combing over this shiny bald spot, and I was like, oh my God, that's horrible. I look like an aging hippie. So that was the end of that. And then I shaved my head after my divorce. So I didn't realize it, but I shaved my head for other reasons, just to get rid of that old story, and it's helped me a lot. So, what should we do with our head hair? You don't have to do anything. Some people are better off with long hair. Like, like somebody who has I'm a warrior, but I have a shaved head. But sometimes long hair is about being a warrior. So what you should do about your hair is what you want to do. What makes you happy, you should do. All right, what else? And I think I remember I was telling you that because you're a hairdresser. And so when you're cutting people's hair, and you're talking to them. I mean, all hairdressers do this. They're counselors. They're not just hairdressers. They're not just hairstylists. They're counselors. You talk to them about your life and relationships, and I broke up with him, and or my wife, we got a divorce, and you're cutting their hair as they're releasing to you, and you're laughing with them and joking with them. It's a way. It's a you're doing a spiritual service, helping people. You always feel better about yourself, and you go on and you change the story about yourself a little bit. You go on and I can go do it. I'll whatever. Get in that new relationship or find a new boyfriend or whatever it is because I look so good because my hair. That's because you did that. That's your job. You're a healer in that way. Okay, so I missed this question here. I don't know how to pronounce that. Mind-rapert. Question. What if the story you intend to create for yourself requires the cooperation of people who are not willing to cooperate? All right, so all of those who've been following me, can you feel my response? So, Mind Rapayard, have you been following me? Are you new to my channel? What in the hell makes you think that your story depends on somebody else? Drop that now. Your story, if you're saying to me that your story depends on the cooperation of somebody else, then you're telling me that they have power over you. Now, I don't know who we're talking about. Are we talking about your parents? Are we talking about friends? Are we talking about a romantic partner? Because my response to all of those is the same, although there's some slight difference, which is you chose them. Nobody forced you. Now, parents are, you're born to your parents, but you have to take responsibility for that as well. You chose them. Before you were born, you said, that's going to be my mother and father, and I'm going to learn this lesson because of or I won't. And see, here's the thing about life. Life is like love. It's a risk. When I was doing psychic work, quote unquote, and people would want to talk to me about relationships. I mean, 98% of all the calls were women wanting me to help them, tell them what their male partner is thinking and what's going to happen and what he's going to do and is he cheating on me and all that. And so I'd have a lot of time where I was talking with people who were very upset about he's not doing this and how can I make him do that and all that. And, sometimes the question would come up, about that. And then I would say, well, listen, this is your choice. You've got to decide. Are you in or are you out? Well, if he can change this way and change that way, no. That's not how it works. You have to accept everybody exactly as they are. And then I would say, exactly as he is, if you can accept him exactly as he is, can you stay in the relationship? And it's a yes or no question. And if the answer is yes, you can, then good. That's what you've got to do. You got to accept them exactly as they are. If your answer is yes, but only if he changes in this way, then the answer is no. And then I say, if you can't accept him exactly as he is, then your only choice is to leave. Because the third option is to be miserable and to make everybody else miserable. Because you're trying to change somebody else. You can't change anybody else. So you're asking me, what if the story you intend to create for yourself requires the cooperation of people who currently aren't willing to cooperate? By cooperate, you mean willing to do what you want. That's not their job. Their job isn't to do what you want. I don't care who they are. So you have only one choice here. Accept them as they are. You see, and you don't even understand what I'm talking about when I say the story about yourself. The story about yourself isn't about other people doing things to and with you in a certain way. That is not what I'm talking about. The story of yourself is, I am this, I feel this way, I do this, life has done this to me, God loves me, the universe doesn't love you. That's the story. The story doesn't mean I am so-and-so and I have a 6'2" man with blue eyes and brown hair who says this to me and does that for me. That is not your story. That's your fantasy. Nothing wrong with that. But you're asking me, how do I change my story and control other people to do what I want? You can't do that. We come here and we have the ability to create our own reality. That is true. Which means you can create a reality where you are with your perfect partner. But you cannot take somebody who is not your perfect partner and change them into it. Having said that, I don't even know if you know what your perfect partner is. You chose that person for a reason. With his or her or their, if we're talking about, family members, you chose them with all of their limitations. And the question is whether or not you are just reflecting your own limitations within yourself, or if this is somebody that you have karma with that you need to interact with and learn and grow. Maybe one of your lessons is you got to learn how to stop trying to control other people. Holy crap, I wouldn't want to be in that relationship. I mean, you even ask, do you change your story or change them? Why compromise? Your last question is the best question yet. Why compromise? Absolutely. Why compromise? And do you know if you're compromising can I accept this person exactly as they are and love them exactly as they are? And if the answer is yes, but only if they change, then your answer is no, and you have only one choice. It's time for you to leave, because they're not going to change. And I'm not saying that people should leave every time something comes up. I talked about my marriage that's no longer there. She's my ex-wife. But what I didn't tell you is that after I had that experience with the dog shit and everything, and I decided that I was going to have everything that I wanted. I was very unhappy in the marriage, but there were some things about it that I liked. And I sat myself down and I had a long talk with myself. And I made a list. I think I might have even written it down. I don't remember, but I made 2 lists. I made a list of all the things that worked and things that fed me and were working for me in the relationship. And then I made a list of all the things that weren't working. And I said to myself, Mike, she is not going to change. You cannot change her. Can you accept the relationship exactly as it is with all of these? And the negatives were more than the positives. And then I asked myself another question. And I said, okay, let's look at the things that do work. Because I felt I had a responsibility to fulfill my commitment, because I made a commitment. And I looked at all the things that were working and I said, what if I just focused on the things that were working? and didn't spend time thinking about the things I wasn't getting. Just accept that those are lost. I'm not going to get those. But these things I do have. And I asked myself, can I live with that? Can I make this work? And I said, yes, I can. And I did. And I focused on those things, and they got bigger and bigger and bigger, and I got more comfortable in the relationship. And I even, more than that, I committed, because up until that point, I was on the fence. Even after, 40 years of marriage and 10 years of relationship, I was on the fence about, am I really in this for the long haul? And I decided, yep, I'm in this for the long haul. I chose to do it. I take full responsibility, and I'm going to focus on what works for me and let that be enough. Now, the strangest thing happened. I got more comfortable in the relationship, and I started to be a better husband. She flipped out and sabotaged it and made it so difficult that I had no choice but to leave. For my own sanity, I had to leave. And that's when you know that your karma with somebody is over. Let's talk about karma, since we're talking about relationships. All relationships are based on karma, every single one of them, whether it's your parents or your siblings or your friends or your children or your bosses or your wives and husbands, boyfriends, girlfriends, life partners. They're all karmically based. And karma is like gravity. If you can't escape it. You get close to the gravity of a black hole, you are not escaping that black hole. Karma and relationships, you are going to be pulled together whether you like it or not. If you have a karmic, unresolved, unfinished karmic debt with somebody, and it is in the form of a romantic relationship. If you have karma, meaning you are meant to be together, if you have karma, that relationship you will not be able to avoid, and no force in the universe will be able to prevent you guys from crashing into each other. If you are not meant, if you do not have that kind of karma, even though you meet somebody or you start to date somebody for a couple of weeks and the sparks fly and then it never goes anywhere, and you're like, how can I get this person to love me? Why would they love me? I know if they did, I would make them happy, right? I've had that. Happens all the time to me. I mean, that happens to me all the fucking time when I'm single. So I know other people have had that. If you don't have that karmic gravitational pull, there's no force in the universe that's going to bring you together. Now, what about relationships that are continuing? You've been married for 10 years, 20 years, 3 years, 5 years, dating for 6 months, a year, whatever. The way that you know that your karmic debt with your partner has been paid off is that you will fight and or you will just be incapable of making the relationship work. You can go to counseling and get the best, and you can both honestly love each other and want it to work. But if that karmic debt has been paid off, there's no force in the universe that's going to keep you together. You now are going to repel. That gravity is going to turn. It's like when you take magnets and you turn them like this, they push themselves apart. That's what it's going to be. With relationships, like for me, because being who I am, I'm not the kind of person where usually the relationships don't end with, and I think it's run its course, and yes, and let's stay friends. But yeah, like people say, well, we're the best of friends. We're just no longer lovers. And that's not how things work out with me. It's usually big, giant fireworks and explosions and FUs and, all that kind of stuff. But my experience, what happens is that, maybe both people feel like this, but at least in one case, one of the partners will become irrational. And no matter what you say, no matter how you try to meet them, you take them to counseling, they just respond irrationally. And there's nothing you can say or do to get them to see things. And again, they might be having the same experience with you. You don't know. This is the other thing. We don't know when we're nutcase. We can't tell. We only know our side of the story. So, that's that. So there's just no place in any of that for trying to control or change anybody. It's insanity. You can't change anybody. They can only change themselves, and that's none of your business. Even if you're married to somebody, their life is none of your business. Their choices are none of your business. If their choices and your choices line up, and there's nothing wrong with trying to be, look, if you want to be in a relationship, you're the one that has to change. You can't change them. You have to change. So to even ask that question about changing somebody else, it's insanity. And I feel for the person on the other side of that question. Since we're talking about this, let's talk about one of the main things that I hear between men and women. So I've done a lot of counseling in my life, relationship counseling, spiritual counseling, and I hear two complaints. It's always, almost 100% always two complaints, and forgive me for generalizing, but women have one complaint, or the feminine in the relationship will have one complaint, and the masculine will have another complaint. The complaint from the feminine is, I just wish I could depend on him. I just wish he had my back. The complaint from the masculine is, I just wish she would stop nagging me. It's always the same. Always. So, if he doesn't have your back, there's either something broken in you that you can't, trigger him to give you your back, or he just doesn't have it in him. If she is nagging you, then there's either something broken in you where you are not stimulating her to reflect back your greatest essence. Or she's just never going to be able to do that. Let's talk about yin and yang, since we're talking about it. I'm trying to find the right words here. What the feminine is seeking, the feminine wants to be inspired. Again, forgive me for Netflix. See, here's the thing about movies. Movies, not so much television, but movies more than television. Movies are modern mythology. Now, there's good movies and bad movies. Good movies are like good mythology. They will last forever. There's a message in them that will last forever. And that means this is something that's been channeled. And forgive me for what I'm about to say, because I can't even believe it's coming out of my mouth. Flipping through Netflix, and I watch, what's the name of that? Something Maguire. Right, the Tom Cruise movie from 1990, whatever the hell it was. Jerry Maguire. That's true. That relationship, it's not a real relationship, so let's just be real. It's fantasy. It's not a real relationship. It's a movie relationship. But the way she responds to him is Shakti. That's what Shakti wants. He does this thing where he changes the whole dynamic, and he says the exact wrong thing, but he is very passionate about the truth and people and love, and then this is a blah, blah, and she reads it and she is inspired by it. She says it numerous times. You inspired me, and she falls in love with him. Right there, falls in love with him. He inspired her. And he responded to that because she looked at him with the eyes of seeing him for where he was, not where he was right now in his own mind, according to his story, but according to his destiny. She saw his destiny in him, and she reflected that back to him. And then this is the thing, men will fall for that. They cannot survive that. They will fall to their knees. If you reflect back to a man his truest destiny, he will be powerless against it. Powerless. And what happens when a man says that she's nagging me is that she no longer sees in him his destiny. She sees in him where he's not measuring up to his own destiny. And she tries to help him, but she tries to do it by controlling him. Perfect example right here. What if the story you intend to create for yourself requires the cooperation of people who currently are not willing to cooperate? Do you change your story or change them? Your story doesn't have to change. In fact, you're not on your story if you are changing your story because of somebody else. You're not on your story. Your story does not change. That's what the feminine means when it says, I just wish he had my back. What is a back? It's a backbone. I just wish he had a backbone. Not in general, but for his own destiny. If he is committed to his own destiny and has an unwavering commitment and is taking action towards his own destiny, he has a backbone. The phallic symbol is, you can see the obvious connection there. He's firm. He's strong. When it says, I wish I had my back, you lean up against something that holds you up. Men, your commitment to your destiny will hold up the Shakti that comes to you. She wants to lean on you. You know, the whole typical, the guy lying in bed and she's got her head on his chest. She wants to lean on his commitment. What he needs is he needs her Shakti. He needs her to surround him with her energy, which is when she looks up and he's here and she sees him up here. And she reflects back to him where he will eventually be. That gives him the power. That's why men will fall to their knees. They will fall. I am powerless over that. I'm not talking about if a woman comes and kisses my ass, I can see right through that. Because I'll smell the agenda. But, you know, if I experience a woman who can reflect that truly, you know, not to try, there are some that have tried, but who really can reflect that back to me, I'm powerless. I'm powerless. I will fall to my knees, be my Shakti. So I don't know how this turned into about relationships, but that question, again, I don't know who you are. Let me see the picture. I can't tell if you're a man or a woman. If you're a man, you have to know that that question is not coming from the masculine, if that's important to you. That is a weak, forgive me, I'm not trying to attack you, but that means you're not in your power as a man. If you're asking that question, you're trying to change somebody, you're not in your power as a man. Let me give you something else that the true masculine does. Why is it that women generally, fantasy-wise, not all the time, but, you know, when we're talking in generalizations, oh, there's just something about a man in uniform. Policemen, firemen, soldiers, what do? They protect. The most powerful experience I've ever had as a man, the most powerful experience I've ever had, and I will do it again any opportunity that comes my way if I can do it, is the most fulfilling experience as a man, is to simply provide that space for somebody to be exactly where they are and provide them the space to align themselves to themselves. And that is a man who doesn't tell you what to do. He doesn't try and control you. He allows you to be who you are, and he steps back and he provides that strength for you to realign to yourself. When women say, I want him to just know me, right? He knows me. That's what they're talking about. Like, like if a woman says, well, if you loved me, you would know. Now, of course, that's craziness. But it's reflecting what Shakti is looking for. And so let me just share to you, ladies, men aren't going to intuitively know what it is that you want and you feel. That's not, you're off track if that's what you're expecting. That's unrealistic. But if they are empowered within themselves, in and of themselves, and they are focused on their goal and they are doing that goal, you will have that experience of, he just knows me. Because he provided the strength for you to realign yourself to yourself. Wow, I'm on it. You guys asked some, I don't know where this came from, but so let's see. Did I answer that? Yeah. So anyway, forgive me, mind rappeart, if I tore you a new one, but that was a good question. Jessica Johnston. Question, do you think karma follows down your family line? Of course. There's all kinds of different karma. There's ethnic karma. There is personal karma. There's your soul karma. There's karma in your DNA. One of the reasons that I do this work is not because I think that every past life I've had, I've been of Germanic origins. I know for a fact I haven't. I know I've been Asian. I know I've been Neanderthal, just to name a couple. I know that I'm sure that I've been West African, no doubt in my mind about that. So I have the soul karma as my soul's bouncing around in these different ethnic lineages. But the physical genetic karma that we have that's in our DNA is we have chosen to take on responsibility to heal the karmic wounds of our direct ethnic ancestors. This is one of the reasons I do this work. I want to heal that. Number one, because white people have fucked things up. And I'm very proud of, I don't want to say being that color, I'm very proud of my ethnic heritage. Very proud of it. For me, the Norse mythology is the most beautiful, the most poetic, and it illustrates so beautifully in so many dimensions the inner truth of shamanic truth found all over the world. That is, for me, the most beautiful. So I've obviously chosen it. Who knows exactly all the reasons why, but for one is because it makes me happy to follow it. So that's one of the reasons I'm doing it and recreating it. But I also know that when I do rituals and when I work with the gods of my ancestors, I am healing my immediate ancestors who were, you go back 1,000 years, in my case ethnically, you go back 1,000 years. That's when my ethnic ancestors started moving out of their alignment with their shamanic ancestors, and they started making a bunch of really messed up decisions. And that's why the world is the way it is. Absolutely no doubt in my mind. Global warming, slavery, you pick it. I take full responsibility for that. And you racists who say that you're proud and you complain about, well, I'm not responsible for that, and those people do this, and they're just as bad as we are. Well, you know what, so-and-so and this race does that, and this, like those of you guys, this is the one thing I don't get. I can intellectually understand somebody who's racist against somebody that looks different. You're that childish that you're afraid of somebody that has a different skin color and you can't relate. I can intellectually understand that, although you hear the judgment, it's very childish. But there are people out there who've got this thing about, the Jewish conspiracy. And you can't tell. You stand next to 20 Jews, you can't tell the difference anymore. There's no physical difference anymore. There's hardly any cultural difference anymore. But for you to, on the one hand, talk about your superiority and the superiority of your race, and in the same breath talk about how these people are taking away your power. How can you be superior if all these other inferior races can take your power away, you pussy? Grow a fucking pair. Nobody on this planet has the power to take anything away from me, regardless of what their background and ethnicity is. I just had to get that out. It's just, just that whole, such pussies. They want to present themselves as being so strong, and they're such pussies. Fucking A, man. Get a fucking pair. All right, so anyway, I digress. All right, so I think I'm back up to, I missed a couple of questions. Thank you for bringing it to my attention. I did miss some questions. Yeah, again, please just focus on the questions. We don't have a lot of people, so it's not that big of a deal. I don't see any questions here. So I'm going to cut it short for today. I'm going to do my spiel. We're going to take some time out for some commercials. If you can come up with a question before I get through my spiel, then I'll answer it. If not, I will call it an evening. So, Qigong.thunderwizard.com, the most powerful energy practice I have seen taught publicly. This is something that I synthesized as a result of doing the esoteric spirit fighting, which is a shamanic practice, a martial art, and energy work, and all that kind of stuff. That is the most powerful energy thing I've ever experienced, and I've done a lot of stuff. It's too powerful to teach online, so the only way that I will ever teach it is in person, one-on-one. But I synthesized from that an energy practice that I thought would be a really great empowering Qigong practice. And there's some meditations in there, which they call Negong, which is just another way of saying internal work or meditation using energy, and has mudras and all that kind of stuff. And I put that together because those were some things that have been very helpful for me. I altered some things so that I could teach it publicly and so that it wouldn't be dangerous. Now, I was not expecting what has happened over the years. That was about 10 years ago. And in those 10 years, the feedback that has come back to me about this practice has surprised even me. I'm very surprised at what people are saying about the experiences they have had, and everybody's different. This is the interesting thing about it. People sometimes want to ask me, well, what exactly am I going to get from this practice? Or tell me exactly what kind of spiritual powers I'm going to get from this. And my response is, I don't know. Because what it will do is it will go in and it will ignite your own spiritual powers that you brought with you, your karmic spiritual powers. Somebody might get healing, somebody might get visions, somebody might get who knows what. But it will do that. It will jumpstart that process, and it will allow you. And for some people, it's very challenging, but it's really cleanses a lot of garbage out of the unconscious. So for that, go to qigong.thunderwizard.com. If you want to learn, somebody contacted me recently, wanted to be my apprentice, and I have to still get back to them and tell them what to do. And they wanted a one-on-one, and I said, I'm sorry, I don't have time right now. I can't take on any more private students. And but what you can do is you can go to thunderwizard.com, and you can start at the base level, and I teach you shamanism, true shamanism, from the ground up. And you learn about ritual and ceremony and the 9 worlds and the 8 directions and Qigong and, did I say runes already? All that kind of stuff. And I teach you from the ground up. You can do that. It's also one of the best ways to support me. If you want me to keep doing these videos, go and do that. Go and subscribe at the very least, the $25 level, because that's something that comes to me every month, and you will have access to all of the private videos, and I'm putting new videos up every week, just about, give or take. So go there if you want that. michaelwilliamdenny.com is all of my books. All of my videos and DVDs are at videos.michaelwilliamdenny.com, I believe. And then we have astrology.thunderwizard.com. If you want to get a reading, of course you can go there. If you want to get certified to do the kind of astrology that I do and have me point up here, every time I point up here, I'm advertising for every single one of my apprentice certified astrologers. I'll give you your own website besides the one that has everybody on it. I'll give you your own private website, and you can give that out, joeschmo.thunderwizard.com, and you can give that out as your website and make your own, get rich, whatever. For that, go to astrologycertification.thunderwizard.com. Astrologycertification.thunderwizard.com. Go learn about that. Same thing goes for the rune certification. runecertification.thunderwizard.com. Do not put a space in there. I did not give you permission to spell for me. runecertification.thunderwizard.com. And there's other things too, but I think a question has popped up here. Okay, so apparently I missed another question further up. Yes, I did. Yeah, this is what happens. See, this is what happens when I have to, anyway. All right, let's go back up here. Darius King says, question, what do you think are 3 of the most interesting things about life? I don't want to answer that kind of question. Darius King, are you new to my channel? If so, welcome. If not, read my books, watch my videos, ask me a question about what I teach. You want to see me go off and really expound? I don't, that just sounds like, I'm bored and we're having tea. And so tell me something, what's the funnest thing you ever did in life? Oh, I got a phone call, I got to take this. You may have had a deep reason for the question, but it's not stimulating me to give you an answer. Sandra Lavini, question. I just popped on, so if this has been covered, no need to address it. I'll listen later. How do you live out other timelines and make different choices? The way you live out other timelines is in this moment. Like you said, you popped on in the beginning. We live in the present moment. The present moment is nothing. It is pure emptiness. The experience that I have of looking at the camera at the top of my computer, and I'm this, and I'm a little bit hungry, and I need to wear my glasses because I'm nearsighted, and so I have to put my glasses on to be able to read this. That's my story that I've created over my entire life. In this moment, if I had the power of full consciousness of Woden, I could change all of that. So how do you live out different lifetimes begins right now. Change the story of who you say you are. It's no easy feat, but it can be done. When you do that, you change timelines. And you can change timelines whenever you want. There's a timeline going on where you're living your perfect life. Whatever it is, there's a timeline where you're living your worst life. My brother, I talked about him earlier, he's homeless, he's living in his truck, he has $30,000 in the bank, he has too much pride to go and go through the mission program to get his ID and go to the bank and get his money. There is a timeline where he's fixed himself, there's a timeline where he never ended up there. And he can go there anytime he wants, but he has to let go of the story he keeps telling himself about who he is. And what happened, and who did what, and I have this, and that happened to me, and that. Same with you, same with me. We can change that story anytime we want and manifest a new timeline or jump onto the perfect timeline. I don't care, look at it however way you want. Okay, I think I answered your question there. Stephanie Sprague question, is Ginnungagap the state of clearing your story? Ginnungagap is Ginnungagap. If you're not familiar with Norse mythology, look it up. Ginnungagap is, before anything was created, there was the yawning chasm. There was the Ginnungagap. And in the Ginnungagap, a spark of the fire world in the south and a drop of water from the mist world came together, and the explosion of yin and yang, fire and water, positive and negative, matter and antimatter came together, and that explosion created the synthesis for things to manifest. So I'm just using Ginnungagap. That is happening in every single moment. I'm just using that as to talk about the present. Cosmo Joe question, are the methods already discussed like heaven, earth, and whole breath enough to change reality? Or is that only the three uniting the three ones? There is no only. Yes, every single one. The truth is you don't need those techniques. I'm not saying don't do them. I'm not saying that, I use techniques. I haven't gotten past that. Any one of those techniques can give you the ability to change reality. But the pressure of that old story is pretty intense. And some of us, if you want to get out the bigger guns, then you use techniques that'll be that. The reuniting of the three ones that we are going to learn later on. I'm this close to getting out phase one. And my plan is to get it out before I leave for Australia. That is the most effective technique that I know of. That doesn't mean it's the only one. But you don't even need that. If you have the strength of fearlessness and I'm not saying this lightly. If you have the willingness and the humility to go to that emptiness, to go to complete nothingness, you can do it right here and right now, in this very second. Okay. Black Earth Productions question, what you said about going into the past and speaking to yourself, parentheses, I do this too, do we do this to set frequency in alignment with the core within Ginnungagap? So whenever he asks a question, I usually have to stop because he asks very deep questions. And he is a deep thinker. And his words do not truly represent the depth of what he's saying. I'm not saying he can't communicate. I'm just saying that when he does communicate, he's talking about deep stuff that goes beyond words. So I have to try and sort of go into his words and see if I can connect to what he's talking about here. Going into the past and speaking to yourself, do we do this to set frequency in alignment with the core? Yeah, I have nothing against that. I guess to me, if I'm thinking about that, maybe this is just me, I'm learning about myself. I need to have something to align myself toward. So when I hear that question like that, to going into Ginnungagap and aligning yourself with the core of emptiness means you stay empty. And that is the ultimate. When we get through all of our incarnations and we have no more desires, we will have no need to manifest and align. We will be in the core and we will have no need to go outside of it. So yes, the way I see it, if I'm understanding your question right, and again, this could just be how I look at things, I try to go into that emptiness so that I can destroy the manifest, the things that are set, and then I align myself with my true desire. And then I want to go be that. So I'm not done. I'm clearly not done with this physical life. My life was so hard. Oh my God. My life was so, and here I am, telling my story, but that was my experience. My life was very difficult. And I'm just now past 5-10 years is now I'm really starting to enjoy life like I never have. And what was I saying? So I want to enjoy it. I have a deep desire to enjoy things, and now I can finally see it. I can really be everything, and I'm still young enough and strong enough and healthy enough. I can do it. Whatever it is I want to do, I can still do it, and I'm going to go do it. We'll see. Maybe I'll move to Australia and create a life there. We'll see. That may be it. But even when I get there, it's not going to be the end. I'll keep wanting to, assuming I get there. So I don't know if I answered your question, but that's my answer. Okay. I think I got everybody's questions. Yep, I think I answered everybody's questions. Okay. All right, that's it. Thank you, mein Freunds. I will see you probably at least one more time this weekend, I bet. So, until then, yes, I'm tired and I'm hungry. I'm going to go collapse and do that thing I said I was going to do, and then eat some food and who knows what. All right. Thank you. Talk to you guys soon.